Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a Film and TV podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Parra, and number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, if you could please down below, like, comment, and subscribe. What did you think of the live action One Piece Season 2, Netflix's original adaptation? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know. With One Piece, there's a couple things to get into here. It is very much adapted based off of the very, very popular anime by Eiichiro Oda, I believe is the name of the manga creator, but most people call him Oda overall. I'm going to come at this with the sense of I need you guys to know I am a gigantic fan of the anime. I have intentionally been saving Egghead to watch fully right before they get into the, I believe they're on Elbaf right now, arc, considering that it just switched into seasonal. First time ever, kind of crazy that they're just now doing that, but I am coming at this with somebody that I know the ins and outs of the series. I know exactly the very, very specific weirdness to it, not just in terms of anime, but in terms of the weirdness to One Piece in general. It's very unorthodox storytelling, and what I have to tell you about this is the anime overall, the manga, all of these things, I adore. This is just a real achievement of storytelling for me personally. It has everything I love though. It has superpowers, it has pirates, it has fables, very much like Aesop, that whole thing. I adore this show, everything about it. If I were to give you a favorite arc of mine, Wano is incredible. I personally think that the bigger and more grandiose this whole story gets, the better and better it gets. I really love this show. And so, with this, I don't know if this is a controversial take to say, but I actually found season 1, or the first arc of the anime itself, is a little bit wonky in terms of its pacing and in terms of everything having to do with it. It takes a little bit to get going. All of the stuff with the evil butler and all the stuff leading into Sanji showing up and Arlong. That's when I think the show gets incredible for me personally. That's where it really takes off. All the stuff before that is kind of like, I love Buggy, I love all that, but I'm prefacing all this to say with season 1 of One Piece, Netflix's One Piece, I don't know if this is a hot take. I think I kind of like it a little bit more than the arcs portrayed in the anime. I think it's really well done. That is to say, I love it. I love season 1 of this show. Not to mention, I really got to mention this. This is the best anime adaptation ever, easily, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind, no question about it, that this is a miracle that it exists at all. It's a miracle that it's good and that it takes all of this stuff very seriously, as much as it can, you know. It delivers everything with a style and a panache and a really just like absolute absurd commitment to the bit. And I love that about it. I was just so astonished that season 1 worked as well as it did. And I remember the standouts being, for all of the things being said about all of the action being very cool and all of the set design being absolutely incredible. And I'm like, I know I shit talk Netflix a lot, but they are really unabashedly committed to this series. And I appreciate that a lot. And they're very clearly shooting these things on real sets and locations. But the most impressive thing about this, and maybe it's because Oda had a hand in this himself, is the casting. Iñaki Godoy's portrayal of Monkey D. Luffy is just the best. It's really the best version of the live action version of the character I could possibly think of. Same goes for Makinyu as Zoro. Zoro is my personal favorite character, much like, a whole lot of other people. And I find that he's just really great in this. He has that stoic energy that Zoro needs, that there is still something bubbling under the surface there. There's this kind of like brooding emo mentality to him, but he also is very much, he keeps to himself. And Emily Rudd as Nami, really, really great. I love that character. I think that she brings a real weight and a real gravity to that character. And I really, really like her in this as well. One character that I find I love so much in this is the portrayal of Usopp in this. He is so great. I really like the portrayal by Jacob Romero Gibson as this character, that I just think that he lends that kind of, not air of like faking something, but he's also very much playing up a specific type of character. And I think that in season 2, which we'll get to here in a second, he really, really gets to shine, and really so does everyone. And one really surprising, they changed something about his character, and it's that in the anime, especially in the time skip portion of it, Sanji, I love him a lot, but he definitely kind of takes a backseat into being this sort of comedic relief. Here, Taz Skylar portrays him with this very much, instead of being like a woman, like instead of being a ladies' man, or instead of being a man that constantly wants ladies, they sort of shift him into being a ladies' man that is able to get the attention of women. And I think it works better for a live action interpretation, because a lot of people find the anime character, that tendency of his, a little bit annoying as well. I think changing his dynamic with Emily Rudd's Nami into a live action thing kind of gives them a lot more chemistry with each other, and it gives them a lot more of a gravity to the relationship they have, and they all have really great chemistry with each other. Here in season 2, let's go ahead and just say this now. With season 2 of Netflix's Oda's One Piece, did I love it? Did I hate it? Or am I somewhere between on it? I loved this season of this show. I think that it takes everything that I really liked about the live action season 1 and really amps it up in every single way. All of the new casting as well is phenomenal. Smoker is one of my favorite characters ever. He's one of my favorite side characters in One Piece, and he is portrayed incredibly well in this. Also, as somebody who really loves the Alabasta arc, which we're not there yet, but Sharithra Chandran's portrayal of Nefertari Vivi, I loved a lot too. I love that character, and I think that she gets a exact same reason why I really love her in the anime as well. All the same stuff here. I think she's really likable. I think she portrays her presence really, really well. And all the chemistry with the original cast is back, and I think that also including, they say her name, remember this as full spoilers. I won't spoil anything outside of what's covered in the anime. I don't want to ruin anything for you. I do want to mention one thing that is in this pretty early on, which I will be able to get into just because they did move it to being this early, but we'll get there in a second. Miss Wednesday is awesome. I'm really, really excited to see more and more of that character. I like that portrayal a whole lot. I love the introduction of the arms coming out of her with the flowers misting by when she's killing all the Marines at the very beginning of the first episode. The music in this season is awesome. The visuals are awesome. All of this is just so cool. And I think really, really honors all of the stuff that comes with everything that has to do with the anime. But if we're going to break this down let's go by episode order a little bit. I'm not going to recap the whole thing, just some of the stuff off of my memory. But the beginning and the end. This is the very first introduction into season 2. This is where we visit whenever Gold Roger is first initially killed on that platform. And of course, Luffy has a natural gravity to it. He wants to go and see it. He even has this really nice quiet moment where he says, everything that I've done so far has led me here and will continue to keep me going. And I really like the reintroduction of Buggy in this. I think that he has this manic energy played by the actor that plays him that I really, really like, and gives him this own kind of like unique spin on it as well. Also bringing back I can never remember her name, but she's from the very first episode and has this really funny joke where Buggy, ironically enough, is like, "Oh, but you remember her name?" And I really like the actress that plays her as well. I also like that she said that she wanted to lose weight to keep the part, which I thought was pretty cool as well. But the whole thing about One Piece is I get that sometimes it's a little, any of the people I know that hesitated to watch it for a while or still were like hesitating to watch it at all, always said it just looks weird. Some of the characters, you're like, why do they look like that? And you know what's funny is some of them, they retain what they look like in the translation to the live action as well. I really like that for whatever reason they commit to that guy. He has like a hanger in his head, and I busted out laughing whenever he's just in the background, because that's just how this world works. And I like that sometimes the characters find it ridiculous too, and they're like, why do you look like that? And then they'll call it out and then just say like, I don't know, it's like my thing. And they'll just move on. It's obviously like it's like a wink and a nod kind of thing, but I think that since this show is never embarrassed of itself, it's able to do all that stuff and still hit every single emotional beat that it goes for. It's a really, really tricky balance that I think is easy to take for granted, but maybe we don't, because anime is already really hard to adapt, and that's obvious because there's been so little good ones in the first place. And that's why every time, now that this has been 2 for 2, I think it's absolutely wild that One Piece, of all things, is the thing with the proper adaptation. But outside of that, after that, this whole episode is basically them visiting this platform and essentially kind of catching on to moving right one last stop before they move into the Grand Line. And I really love, this is one of my favorite Zoro moments, this moment that is recreated with him walking into the shop, and initially this guy's like trying to hustle him and giving up one of his swords, where he meets Tashigi, who, if you are a little confused on his whole hesitation of that, looks just like the girl that tripped down the stairs and died in his training when he was growing up, which is why he's like, he gets all flustered and he's like, why do you look like that? And I really like that portrayal of that character as well. I like her kind of like nervous energy. She reminds me of Velma from Scooby-Doo. But I think that all of these, even if the actors, maybe they weren't familiar with One Piece beforehand, but they all seem to know their characters very, very well and who they're portraying. And for me, it never feels like people doing a put on, you know, like of like, no offense to cosplay players whatsoever, I love what you guys do, but people that just feel like they're doing, I don't know, maybe some recreation at like some sort of show or something, where they're like fans that are just faithfully recreating something as fans. It feels just a little bit more than that. Like, it feels like all of these events are happening for the first time, but in live action. And they take a lot of what anime does, where they will take manga panel by panel and adapt it, and does, you know, what Americans do. They don't adapt things like panel for panel, but still does it very faithfully. And anything that's changed typically is within reason of still working really well. But I love the moment whenever Zoro finds this cursed sword, and the delivery that's here about like, I'm sorry, but I cannot sell you that. I really like, you know, the lore behind some of this stuff, the unexplained and the mythology that comes from some of the stuff that's in One Piece, and it works really well in here. And the first episode is basically just like kicking things back into gear, basically like, here's where we left off, here's where we are right now. And episode 2, I loved. This is Good Whale Hunting. I also liked that a lot of these are basically play on movie parody titles. And Good Whale Hunting is the story of Laboon, a whale that was left by his crew, and he's convinced that his crew is coming back. And one thing that is added here that I'll get right off the bat is they add Binks Brew, which is a very popular song within One Piece. And Brook is in this. Brook is a character that comes in later. Oh, completely forgot to mention Bartolomeo, who's introduced in the Dressrosa arc, much, much later than now, is introduced this early on, because canonically this is how this happens in the first place. Luffy's just not the most reliable narrator in the world in terms of remembering things. But I like what appears to be this change that they are showing all these things in chronological order now. I have no issue with this whatsoever. I really, really like that. Also, Bartolomeo, that design is unbelievably well translated into live action. I couldn't believe how good it looked, honestly. And I really liked this episode. It's as emotional as ever. It's just a very simple story that's very dedicated to this whale and the emotions that he has, and the whole moment where they're going upwards into the Grand Line and then down with that reverse mountain. It feels so much like a ride, doesn't it? And I know that there are some rumors of like a One Piece theme park somewhere happening. I think that Epic Universe is rumored to have something like that. I don't know if One Piece is big enough here. Maybe it is, but I would love that. I would think that that'd obviously be like the strongest idea for a ride. But I really love the backstory with Laboon, and also adding Binks Brew, which is an incredible piece of music this early on, and making it the connection in which Luffy reaches out to this whale is just really simple. For as grandiose and as over the top as the show can get, the content, all of it, at the end of the day, One Piece does a lot of emotional storytelling, and I think that this is the biggest indicator of what it does best. It can be ridiculous and over the top, and the fact that there's this whole thing in this where these guys get swallowed by a whale, and then like Luffy's whole thing this episode is to get them out by bonding with it. That's just what this show is, and that's what this show does best, is stuff like that. And I think that the portrayal of the lighthouse keeper was phenomenal. I loved that performance and just the added gravity to it, that I think that this world feels lived in. This world feels very much like there are people that inhabit this every day, and like that lighthouse has just been there for a long time, and he's been there for a long time. I think it's really hard to do that, and I would never take that for granted, but I admire that a lot. And I love this episode a whole lot. It feels almost kind of like, one thing that One Piece likes to do is it will intentionally not give you the gratification right away. It will be like, especially the anime did this, where it was like, no, you know what? You are going to spend like 8 episodes with this whale now. You just got into the Grand Line, but you are not going to actually see any of it just yet. We got to do this first. And I can see where that might, with some people, you got to be patient, I think, with the show sometimes. I don't know. I feel like with live action, it translates super well because any of the pacing stuff they kind of, remove. But I loved episode 2. I love Laboon. I love that character. I love the whole stop bumping your head against this because you are part of our crew now. And if you get rid of that, then how are you going to remember us? I love that. I love that Luffy has this almost like simple thing about him, but also there's just something really, really simple, but also just a deep appreciation for something on just that kind of, not deeper, but it's substantial. And episode 3, Whiskey Business. I told you, I'm a Zoro fanatic, so the scenes in which they go to, what is it called? Whiskey Peak? Whiskey Peak, yes. And he kills 100 people. Seeing this on a live action scale with all of the choreography and all of the camera work, I just want to talk about how well done it is. It's so well done. The action scene itself is incredible, and I think that Makanyu and a lot of the people on this team did a lot of stunt work and learned a lot of stunts for their characters. But this was just so well done. Honestly, better than I ever could have anticipated it was going to be. I loved the action in this particular episode. I also love the character of, it was Miss Wednesday and her like royal companion that there's there's so many names and I don't want to get any of them wrong, but basically he has a powdered wig that has guns coming out of it. Is it Mr. 9? No, Mr. 9 is her sidekick with the crown. But sorry guys, I'm like coming off as like a fake fan here. But I really, really loved Igaram, yes, as this portrayal of him. And I really like all of the Baroque works guys in this. I think that they're played with a really just like over the top villain aesthetic that I really, really like. And I think that the commitment to all of their powers as well, the kilo fruit, where you can manipulate your weights at will, and then the guy who has it's so gross, but the booger bombs, he's so cool in that whole, like, their fights are awesome. But this episode was very much just like, it was like one of the action-y episodes, but it's pretty much just a flex to show off how cool everybody is, but especially Zoro, who has this sort of internal struggle the whole time that he feels not as good as he anticipated that he would be. And I like that. Something that they kind of changed for the live action that I think makes a lot of sense is they don't nerf the characters, but they definitely give them a little bit more of a challenge, especially Luffy, who kind of, I feel like, just barrels through everything in his way. And here I feel like he is rambunctious for sure. He's kept pretty much the same, but he needs a little bit more help than maybe the anime one would. But I don't mind that at all, simply because the earlier parts of the show, of the anime, almost feel like they are kind of just like blasting through everything. And that's part of why I think the stakes were like, some of the villains were just idiotic and annoying, which we'll get to in a little bit. But moving on into Big Trouble in Little Garden. This is one of the setups for Usopp in particular that I really, really love about this sort of lesson of the bravest warriors are still scared. That's why bravery is important, because of the idea of fear. And I love that was stated here, and I love Brogy, and I can never remember the name of the other ones. Sorry, just my defense, there are so many names of people. But the two giants, I love this whole thing where they have been warriors, but they can't remember why they've been arguing for so long, but they've been beefing on this island for like such a long time. And I think that the introduction of the Baroque Works agents in this really give them a lot to do in terms of the painter girl, where she can manipulate emotions, as well as, I love this actor, David Desmelkian. He's so good in his role as this Baroque Works agent with wax powers, who his powers are over the top for sure, but I like that he even indulges in it. He's like, they forgot how to be Baroque. They forgot how to, like, look cool and stylish while they're killing people with their cool powers. And it lends for a lot of really creative action, and it lends for also a lot of creative environment. I really like that they go off into this like prehistoric world where there are dinosaurs, and yes, there are T-Rexes and dinosaurs in One Piece and giants and all of this stuff. But this also lends to a couple of my favorite moments. There's a couple of lines of dialogue that they don't break the fourth wall, but they feel very much an acknowledgement of maybe some of the worries that some people had. Nami has this one line early on where she's like, and you thought we were going to skip Logtown, which makes it feel almost like talking to the audience of like, I don't know why you thought we'd skip that. We're, embracing all of the lore and everything. And there's one other thing that happens in this that is so ridiculous that I'm like, the show called it out, but the line is so funny. And it's this moment where Sanji's on this phone call and he has to talk to, we don't know who this is just yet, but Mr. Zero. And he's like, I'm going to have to put you on hold. And he has this hold music. And then they're called the Unluckies. It's this otter like in pajamas on a bird with machine guns. And this otter like has these like knives that he fights with. And Sanji's line in it is so funny. But then the fight is also really, really well done too, and actually really tense. And I love that this choice to make the camera angle static, so you could just see everything kind of going on. It sort of does that like Stan Lee Amazing Spider-Man cameo thing, but within all the stuff like happening while Mr. Zero is on hold the whole time. But I thought that was just, it felt like something that maybe they wouldn't have done, but they did it, and I love that about it, and I love that this show did that. But moving on to the final portion of this season is when a very iconic member of the group is introduced, Tony Chopper. And all of this remained just as good as it ever was, in my opinion. I love this story. I love the story of Chopper, and they really did dedicate the whole, like, his whole backstory with the doctor and this kind of tragic thing where Chopper's not loved by anybody, and he can sense that he's dying and he doesn't want him to experience that, so he kicks him out, and all of like the tragic reasonings that are behind this. But I loved all this stuff. I love Chopper's backstory, and I love that they really did faithfully recreate all of this. Chopper's design is incredible. All of his forms are really incredible, and I like that when they switch to the big monster form, it's like prosthetic. That's really smart. It's probably going to be, if they ever like, have budgeting issues, that that's probably like what they're going to rely on. But try not to think cynically there, but still, like, I think you just think about like, okay, how much money can be dedicated to this, because Karoo's not in this, Vivi's duck, and they're probably like, well, we got to save all our money for Chopper and all the other stuff we got to do. But all of this stuff I really like. I like how it looks a lot. And you know what's funny is there's a character in this that I found a very annoying villain in the original, and I really like his just grandiose, over-the-top performance here is Wapol. Wapol's devil fruit power also is so creative looking, and I really like that. I think it's prosthetic where the jaw like unhinges, and then I like the addition of the monsters coming out of him, that's also tied into it. And Dalton was a really great addition as well. But all the stuff here is just so well done, and it's emotionally moving. And I like all the stuff with Kureha at the end where she's doing that whole like, get out of here, like, that what is it, Old Yeller, or Fox and the Hound, stuff like that, where it's like, get out of here, I don't love you, and like, they're like tearing up the whole time, and the animals are confused. It's that kind of story, but still, it's really well done. And I thought that this was just done with so much emotional reverence as well. And I really like that they showed the reverie. Sorry, the word connection reminded me of that. With the government that early on. Some of the costumes are like hilarious to see in live action, but they're so well done and the costuming's so great. And honestly, guys, I don't have anything negative to say. I thought that this was a really, really great adaptation of this part of the show. Up next is the Alabasta arc. I know who they cast as Ace. I am so excited to see it. But this is more or less just me raving about this particular season of the show. I loved it so much. It was everything I wanted it to be, really. I think that it's really impressive what Netflix has done with this show. I think that it is quickly becoming, as long as they stay the course with the creatives, everyone they have, all of the casting, all this stuff, I think that if it keeps going how it's going, this is going to be one of Netflix's best like original series. And original, you know what I mean. But I loved this so much. What did you guys think of One Piece Season 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know. As someone who has not seen the anime, not me, but you, if you are watching this, what did you guys think of it? I cannot help but wonder through the lens of other people what they're wondering about this show. I am showing it to my father, my dad, and he really, really likes it. He was aware of some of the anime just because he knows that I'm a big fan of it, but he really likes this show. That's about as much as I know, but thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Up next is a review for Project Hail Mary. I'm going to be more raving here in a minute. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.